What's up, my friend? Welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be talking about something that's a little bit more raw and something that I don't think is covered enough in academics and schools in general, choosing your lifelong path and what you want to pursue, especially as a musician and as a composer and producer and so on and so forth. Specifically, I want to talk about why film scoring or media composition in general may not be the right path for you. And I'll share with you my personal experience, what I've learned along the way, and hopefully some insights and recommendations for your next steps if you're interested and you're kind of in the cross paths of wondering where to actually go next with your musical journey. Before we really dive in though, in case you are composing music, but you want that workflow, that framework to follow while composing music, and you want to feel confident every step of the way, then I want to give you an absolutely free guide I call the Ideal Composing Workflow. And this covers my 4-step process from going from your initial idea all the way to the completed product. If you follow this framework, if you internalize it and start putting it into practice, I can guarantee you that you'll start to feel more confident every time you write your music. And that's the best thing we can go away with, is just feeling confident in our abilities and understanding how to approach the music making process in a clear and linear way. So I want to give that to you absolutely free. Just click the first link in the description box below and you can download that as my gift to you. So let's kind of dive in. Why might film scoring or video game scoring or just writing for picture, right? Why might that not be the right fit for you? Well, let me give you a little backstory into my upbringing, okay? So I was brought up as a classical pianist. I started playing the piano at the age of 5. I took classical piano lessons and violin lessons at a young age. And then I dropped violin and then I went into piano full time. And then I went into university for classical piano performance. And this was kind of at a point in my life where I started to compose music. I was starting to write music, and I realized I was actually in love with that a lot more than I was playing piano, like playing other people's music, playing deceased people's music. And I felt a lot more fulfilled and a lot more creative when I had the ability to create something of my own rather than replicating someone else's music. So that's what got me started on this lifelong journey of songwriting and creating music from scratch. And I've never been the biggest movie fan or film fan or video game fan. Like I play a few video games and I watch a few films over and over, but I'm that sort of person where I try not to consume too much content, and I personally enjoy creating more than I consume in some regards. But generally it feels very fulfilling to create something from scratch. And so my vocabulary when it comes to the movie scene and the video game scene isn't quite up there with a lot of other people. And at a point, I felt insecure about that. I was a little bit iffy, and I didn't know if I fit into some circles because I wasn't quite up to scratch on those industries, right? But I could always fall back on knowing that I could write songs and write music that I personally felt proud of, and I could also share that with the world and potentially impact other people. So that was my driving force, and is still my driving force to this day. So when it comes to film scoring or media composition and actually applying your creative juices to either an image or a video or whatever it may be, that requires a completely different skill set, because you're not only just writing the music, but you're also learning how to sync that up to the picture, how to use certain tools in your DAW to create these perfectly lined up audio visual experiences for the viewer or the listener, right? And it's a whole process. You got to work with an entire team. And so it's a much more collaborative effort, and one that requires a lot of attention and dedication and focus. So I personally think of, film scoring and video game composition as completely different art forms compared to just writing concert music or just writing music for the sake of writing music. We have to realize that when we're writing for those other mediums, we are limited in certain ways. We are restricted, and that might not necessarily be a bad thing. If you enjoy writing to picture and bringing that picture to life, then that is absolutely your calling, right? But you do have to realize that if you've written something that you love, but maybe the director doesn't really like as much, then you're kind of at their mercy, and you kind of have to readjust the music until they are happy with it and they sign off on it. So that is one of the biggest reasons I think, why a lot of composers go through stress, because they have these deadlines and they have these pressures of having to meet certain expectations of, directors or developers, right? And it's not until these developers and people, they sign off on it, until you can relax and then the job is now finished. So there's more responsibility to this, because you're literally working for someone else, and they have the final say on whether or not your music is good for their project or whether they like how it fits with it, right? So that for me is one core reason why I never really gravitated towards the field of media composition in general, because I've always enjoyed having 100% creative control over whatever I do. And I want whatever music I compose to be able to stand on its own without the need for a visual aid or visual guide. I enjoy the feeling of being able to move people with music just by listening to it, rather than having to, watch a film to feel the effects of the music. Now, of course, a lot of composers, John Williams comes to mind, he writes film scores that can also sound beautiful on their own as well, and very iconic, very memorable. And that is a perfect medium between those two avenues, I would say. But yeah, for me personally, I've just always enjoyed kind of writing more for myself. And I can say that more, I guess, as a hobbyist, because I literally do write music as a hobby. I don't do it professionally, so I don't have those pressures and those obligations to continuously produce music on a regular basis. That routine and that consistency comes more in the form of my content. So if you followed my channel for any length of time, you know that I post at least a video a week, and I really enjoy doing this because I enjoy sharing what I know, what I do, right, my process with you. So that for me is another form of creative output where I can actually add value to the world and hopefully help others along the way. So that is my routine and my consistency, and that's what I've committed to. Whereas composers who work full-time writing music, maybe for sync, maybe for trailer houses, for libraries, they're dedicated to playing the long numbers game of creating enough tracks so that hopefully a few of them will be selected and picked up, and then they'll start earning those back-end royalties, which can be very lucrative if done well and over a long period of time, right? So ultimately, I think we just have to decide what is right for your personality. Like, why did you get into music in the first place? Is it because you were inspired by films and video games and you want to write music that supports those mediums, right? Ask yourself that question. Or do you just want to write music for the sake of writing music, for the joy of writing music, and you don't want to be constrained by any other pressures or any deadlines or anything like that, and you want that final say on your music? I personally fall into the latter camp, but if you are in the former, that's absolutely respectable, and I wish you all the very best in that endeavor. And it requires a completely different skill set than just writing music on its own. Writing music on its own also has its own art form, and you have to consider things like structure and everything like that. But again, they're kind of two separate fields altogether. So I think once you really determine what the flow is for you, like what do you really enjoy doing, and how do you enjoy outputting music, what kind of form do you enjoy, that will kind of determine where you want to go with your next steps in your musical journey. I've kind of come to terms with this myself over the past couple of years, that I've just always enjoyed writing standalone pieces of music because I personally want to make that difference in someone else's life through my music by itself. Of course, in my educational material as well, to help other musicians make better music. But if I'm releasing music, then I want the listener to feel something, and I want to know that I was able to do that in a raw and authentic way, rather than, I guess, having that music associated with something else and then having those things work together, you know? So it sounds kind of selfish when I say it out loud like that, but that's literally the truth. I mean, that's why I started writing music in the first place. It was because it just felt like so much fun to create something from scratch and work on those personal projects without having any deadlines, any pressures to fulfill. And I wouldn't change it for anything. It's been a great learning journey because I've recently had the chance to score a film or add some additional music to a film thanks to a fellow composer. And I learned a lot along the way. I certainly did. And I wouldn't exchange that experience for anything. But it taught me a lot about myself as well, what I prefer, what I prefer not to do. And so that's why I'm sharing this with you today, is because whatever I learn along the way, I want to share that with you. And I want you to know the reality of what musicians actually face on a day-to-day basis. And this is one of those questions I think that we all come across at some point or another. Is media composition, is film scoring the right fit for me? And don't be afraid or don't be ashamed if the answer is no. Maybe just writing music whenever you feel like it is the right way to go. And there's nothing wrong with that. If writing for film or video games is your calling, and if you feel super excited every time you get to do that, then that is your calling and you should absolutely commit to that. So hopefully that kind of helps, gives you a bit of an insight into what I was thinking about in regards to this topic. And, maybe let me know in a comment below where you currently are in your journey. Like, are you scoring professionally? Do you have regular gigs? Are you enjoying it? Or do you feel any pressures? Is it hard at times? Is it difficult? Or are you kind of scoring as a hobby? Are you just writing music for fun and it doesn't, like, you can just write whenever you want, but you would like maybe some gigs in the future to see what that feels like? Let me know in a comment below. I'd love to hear your personal experiences. And if you are just kind of starting out, or if you've been writing for some length of time, but you do want to kind of step up your workflow and you want that clear framework from start to finish to take your initial idea all the way to the finished master, I want to give you my ideal composing workflow guide. It's a 4-step process. It's absolutely free, and it will just outline everything and give you a really clear framework to follow step by step. So you can download that absolutely free in the description box as my thank you to you for watching today's video, I should say. All right, my friend, I'll catch you in the next one, and take care. See you later. Bye-bye.